We should be live. We should be live, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we're back in the public session, and we've just finished the closed session, so we're moving to the Movember proclamation, and it's something that I'll read out right now. Movember proclamation, November 1st, the 20th of 2020. Whereas men in Canada have a 1 in 8 chance of getting prostate cancer, and 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a mental health problem this year, Movember Canada is committed to raising awareness about men's health issues and their effect on fathers, sons, brothers, uncles, boyfriends, and husbands across Canada and the world. During this month, Movember Canada encourages men to grow a mustache for 30 days in an effort to promote and raise awareness for men's health, specifically prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's mental health. Unchecked, prostate cancer rates will double over the next 15 years. Globally, testicular cancer is the most common cancer among men aged 15 to 39 years of age. Across the world, 1 man dies by suicide every minute of every day, with males accounting for 75% of all suicides. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Carl Hauck, on behalf of Bruderheim Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2020 as Movember in the town of Bruderheim. And so I'll sign that proclamation off and pass that back to administration. And thank you for being a proud supporter of Movember there, Deputy Mayor. Now,
Mr. Mayor, can you just give me a minute? I just wanted to make sure that the rest of my staff is on now. I'll just give me a microsecond.
I think Dennis is on there. I saw him.
And then, yeah, if anybody wants to support, I have a link on my Facebook page, and there's a friend of mine. She has a very achievable goal that she's looking to hit this year. So if anybody wants to donate a buck or two, hey, feel free.
Great. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are we good to go now?
We are good to go.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to adopt the minutes of November 4th, regular meeting of council. Would someone from council be willing to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor George.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the minutes of the November, what is it? November 4th meeting as presented.
Thank you, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns or inquiries about those minutes? Okay, call for a vote then. All those that are not in favor of the motion? Hearing none, motion's carried. Moving on to number 8, council priorities. 8.1, information request. We'll start over here on the right-hand side. Councillor Pat.
Not a request, just thanks for the rock chips that have been put around town. It's very icy for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Pat.
Okay.
Councillor Judy.
I've got nothing, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Len.
Yes, I have something. I want to bring up the council meetings. We have a town hall which is totally empty. It's a large space. We can easily put all the council there in safe distance with masks and the citizens. It'll be much easier for us council. We can get more debate. The last 2-3 council meetings were extremely difficult. They didn't work out at all. It looked like only 2 or 3 people were basically running the council meeting, which is not right. And I think that we should use the town hall. I don't believe administration would have a big issue with that because of the, I can ask Patty, because of the location and the size of it. So I would think it would be wise for us in the future, conduct our business out of there. We can still safely distance, and we have a lot of space there for residents who want to attend the meeting. I really believe that we've lost our, a lot of things we're doing now, we've lost. And I don't think we debate things properly. We don't discuss things properly. And there has been quite a bit of a disaster, especially the last 2 and 3 council meetings. So if we have this empty facility and we're not going to be renting it out, it would be just convert that to the council chambers for the next 6 months or 8 months. It would be a wise idea. And this way we can work together as a team in a team setting. Because right now, I don't believe this is working at all. Thank you. And you can ask the administration their thoughts on that too.
Yeah, so Councillor Len, are you putting that into a motion, or do you want
Yes,
that?
I would like to put that into motion that we use the town hall as our council chambers for the next 6 to 8 months.
Okay, thank you for that motion. So we have a motion. I'm looking for discussion on the motion. Councillor Wayne?
What's the feasibility of doing it in there? I know that there's some internet issues and whatnot. So would we be able to still put this out on Facebook like we have been? Just curious about that.
Thank you, Councillor Lecco, through Mr. Mayor. No, we would not be able to put it out on Facebook. We have no internet connection at the community hall, as well as Councillor Lee's not feeling well this evening. Could be anybody that's not feeling well. They wouldn't be able to dial in because there's no internet connection there. I also have a concern about that we'd only be allowed to have 5 extra people in the hall. And I know typically we don't have more than that, but we would have to have an extra staff member making sure that we didn't exceed the 15-person limit. And let's see what else. Yeah, we couldn't do Facebook Live. And we wouldn't be following the Chief Medical Officer's request that we do as much virtual interaction as possible. That would be my comments, Councillor Lecco.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Anyone else from council have any thoughts, questions, concerns with this motion?
Sorry.
How close are we getting to setting up the fire hall for equipment?
Sorry, Councillor George, I didn't hear what you said.
How close are we getting to having the fire hall set up for Wi-Fi and all the IT material that we needed to put in there? Or are we still looking for quotes?
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Campbell, we are just waiting for confirmation that our grant, our MSP funding was approved to set up the community or the fire hall for all the technical things that we need there to run an EOC in the council chambers. So I can't say I'm still checking every week, but I would hope that we would learn before the end of the year if we were granted that funding to upgrade the fire hall.
So if that does go forward, would it be possible for us to use the fire hall then?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, that's absolutely the plan. There won't be separate devices in front of every councillor, so we won't be streaming 9 devices. We'll have 1 camera in the ceiling with wireless mics for council, still being able to distance, and yeah, that is the plan.
Thank you for that.
I have something to say about what we're doing tonight. It's a far improvement over what we've had in the past. I feel comfortable with this.
Thank you, Councillor George. Councillor Wayne and then Councillor Pat.
I just had a question for Councillor Florida. Were you referring to the community hall or the fire hall?
The community hall.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pat.
I was just wondering, Patty, in terms of when we get that money, how, like for the quotes and that, are you already got somebody, a couple checking in, or you got some ideas, that kind of a thing, so we could get set up and get going?
So Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lee, absolutely, we had to get quotes to put in for the grant funding. So we've actually had the vendors checking in with us to see if we had the funding already. So it would take probably 30 to 60 days before the delivery of the equipment, because everybody's trying to get the same sort of equipment right now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that. Councillor Len has his hand up.
Yes, I'm still strongly for the hall. I don't believe it would be an extremely expensive proposition to put an internet service in there, because that advances that hall to future use for any of our clients in the hall. So it's no more cost of putting in your hall than in your house. So I think if we put an internet connection in there, we could resolve this issue and make use of the hall and put the council meetings back there as a direct council meeting. And then this way, if you want to put it on the internet, you can.
for that, Councillor Len.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just say something to that, we would have the same problem that I can't live stream with more than 3 people. Would be the same interconnection that we have at the fire hall currently, as well as if you guys aren't on separate devices, I can't live stream because we don't have anything. We'd have to hire a company. It can be done, absolutely can be done. I could get some quotes. Maybe that would help council make a decision on what it would cost to have somebody live stream. It's very difficult to hear when you're all 2 meters apart. For us just to hold up like a camera or something in the corner, you have to have separate mics or devices so that people can clearly hear your conversation.
Thank you for that. Any other thoughts? Councillor George has his hand up.
At the present time, we don't need an extra cost. We have a process in the works right now at the fire hall. And if that goes through, it'll be more than sufficient for what we need in the town. Adding another piece of IT equipment is just adding more expense and cost to the taxpayer.
Thank you for that, Councillor George. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns on this motion? I have a couple of thoughts. So it seems that this setup that we have right now is very stable and it's working very well for this meeting. I'd like to see us to be able to continue this format if that's possible, administration.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. And
the other thing I wanted council to be aware of is Remembrance Day was live streamed, and from communicating to the residents of our community standpoint, that was very successful. 445 views by the community. And our council meetings typically are ranging from anywhere from 30 to over 100 views. So we're certainly getting the message out about what our council is trying to do to a lot of our residents. So I would hate to lose that. And I do have a question about the grant. Seems to be a slam dunk. Would that be something that maybe we could just go ahead with, and then once we got the money, then we replenish the reserves with that money? Or are we really concerned that we're actually not going to get that grant?
Mr. Mayor, I don't like to spend money before it's in our bank account, but a little more patience. If this is working better, I would ask council if we could try this for a little while, and absolutely not a long-term solution. But with the numbers so high in the region, even though we're in a safe zone right now, we do border and our friends and family work and play in the enhanced areas. So I think it's prudent for us to maintain this virtual platform, safety of staff and council.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the other thing I wanted to bring forward is if someone did have to self-isolate for whatever reason, then if we're in the community hall and not being able to have someone stream into it, they would be losing out and wouldn't be productive for our council. It's important that we be able to have everybody a part of it. So I would hate to see that happening where we would be singling out someone who couldn't attend or was potentially afraid to attend because of the concerns of COVID, because it is very real and it's just out there not too far away trying to get everyone. So I don't think I'd be in favor of this motion, but that's my thoughts. And is there any other thoughts from council before we take it to a vote?
And Mr. Mayor, if there's anything I can do to make things easier, I know this is really tough. If council would prefer some printed materials or some other tool or something in your toolbox to make this easier, please let me know, reach out. I do want to make this easier for council as we transition.
Thank you. So again, if there's no other thoughts or concerns, we'll put it to a vote. All those not in favor of this motion, please respond with aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And in favor of the motion?
Aye.
So the motion is not carried, and we can move along with our council priorities. Thank you for that motion, Councillor Lang.
Mr. Mayor, did you make the full rounds for information requests?
No, I'm not finished with the information requests. I was just flipping the page to see what was next.
I'm sorry.
So on information requests, Deputy Mayor Dan is next.
Nothing for me today, thank you.
Councillor Wayne.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Councillor George.
I have a concern or information. Now that it's wintertime, we have the skidoos out, and the bylaw states that we have a trail that goes down past the railroad track. But now that we have a small housing unit right along the track, it doesn't seem justified that we have this bylaw where we can use that area for a skidoo trail, as it's interrupting some people's sleep. One of the fellows works night shift. Maybe we'll have to revisit that bylaw.
We could certainly revisit the bylaw. I remember quite distinctly the verbiage in that bylaw. It says they are to take the most direct route out of and into town, is what I recall reading in that policy. But if you're requesting that we can bring that policy back to council to review, that's probably a good idea. Do we need a vote on that, CAO Pat?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
So would you like to make a motion, Councillor George, to revisit that policy?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we review the bylaw in regards to skidoo traffic within the town.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Okay, hearing none, then anyone opposed to this motion? And motion's carried. Thank you for that, Councillor George. Does anyone else have any other information requests? If not, I've got one that I was thinking about here, and I just want to run this by our council to see what your thoughts are. So we're doing a lot of virtual meetings now, and a lot of times we're attending events now that are virtual. And I'm just wondering if we need to revisit the policy for council pay for the meetings that were attended. Maybe there's some inclusion for verbiage for virtual meetings for town council now that needs to go into that policy.
Mr. Mayor, are you asking me?
Yep, I certainly am.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking for council comments. Right now, me and Sherry are looking at the meeting procedure bylaw and adding virtual and how that would look. But we didn't look at remuneration. That would be separate.
Right. Okay. And so when do we have to make a motion to review that remuneration policy along with that at the same time then, or?
Yeah, that would be a good idea, Mr. Mayor.
So I would like to take my mayor's hat off and pass that over to Deputy Mayor Dan, and then I would like to make a motion about that.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead.
So I'd like to make a motion that administration can bring the council remuneration policy back to council for review and possibly discussion, and maybe some changes in regards to virtual meetings.
Okay, and I guess
I'm just checking with CAO Pat if that verbiage works.
It does, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And I guess I'll open the floor for questions and comments. Councillor Len?
At this time, I could not support that. We're in financial difficulty, and I don't believe we should be paying people to sit on the computer. If they have any travel expenses going to leaving their house, I can see some expenses, but I would never support that kind of thinking.
Just so that council is aware of what I was thinking, is there's less involved at times to go to virtual meetings. So I was actually thinking of it as a cost savings instead of the amount that's right there right now for attending meetings that we're doing. It would actually be my intention to try to lower that figure for the virtual meetings. So it wouldn't be costing us more, it would be costing us less.
Okay, thank you, Len. Thank you, Mayor Carl. Councillor Campbell.
You're looking at cost per hour or whatever time that the person puts on the computer to attend that meeting then.
That's right.
So it could be
whatever form come up with to replace, because lots of times now we're attending meetings like the AIHA and so forth, where it was in person before and now it's virtual. I think maybe it would be wise for our council to look at maybe that should be a lesser of a cost than it was before to attend those meetings, because it is virtual, right?
Well, then I would be very much in support of that motion with the clause that when the COVID is over, that we return back to the normal status.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Lee?
I was sort of thinking along the same lines as George, in terms of just leave the remuneration as it is for when we do get back to normal. However, would be an add-on in terms of the virtual meetings. Something like that, Carl? Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, because I can see, Councillor Pat, that somewhere down the road, this is going to become more of a norm than what we're used to. And so then there'll be meetings that we won't have to actually physically be at anymore. We'll be doing them over the computer or iPad or whatever, but we don't have any way to speak to that in our remuneration or council procedure policy.
Okay, so, but still maintaining because I'm looking forward to meetings in person, 100%.
Yep.
I live for that.
Yeah,
so,
well, I'm not saying that we would ever change that. I'm just saying that we don't have anything to cover us right now. And I could see in the future that it would still happen with some of the organizations that we're involved in. And we don't have anything to cover that off right now.
Okay, I understand. I agree. I agree with that for sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor Lee. I did see Councillor Judy and then Councillor Campbell next.
So basically what you're asking for is a clarification to include it, right, Carl?
That's right.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you, Councillor Schuler. Councillor Campbell?
Question directed to CAO Patty. Could this motion be brought forward as a bylaw?
Mr. Mayor.
An attached bylaw to the one that we have already.
So Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, we would just do an addition to the existing remuneration policy for elected officials. And we would just add another column in, we'll do some research about what some other municipalities are doing. And yeah, I think you're right. Coming a year from now, there might be some meetings it's a great point, that continue to be online.
No.
Awesome. Great questions, everybody. Any other questions, concerns? Not hearing any. I guess we'll take this to a vote. So all in favor. Hold on a second. All not in favor. Yeah. One more time. Here we go. Yeah, all not in favor, say aye, please. All right. It is passed. I will now take my helmet off and hand that back to the Mayor Hauk.
Thank you very much, Deputy Dan. Good job. So that concludes the information requests, unless somebody else has an information request they would like to bring forward. Okay, program requests. We'll go in reverse order. Councillor George, do you have any program requests?
No.
Okay.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Wayne?
Not at this time, no.
Councillor Dan, or Deputy Mayor Dan, sorry.
None for me, thank you.
Councillor Len?
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Pat?
Nothing, thanks.
And Councillor Judy?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. So we can move on to a request for decisions 9.1, change in hours of operation for December 24th and December 31st.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to provide council with information related to proposed business operations on December 24th and December 31st, 2020, The Town Council approves closing all business operations for the Town of Bruderheim staff on December 24th, 2020 and on December 31st, 2020, with the exception of emergency response if required. The employee handbook as of June 1st, 2019, section 601E states that staff that are scheduled to work on Christmas Eve and New Year's will be leave at noon with pay. If these days fall on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, staff would be required to work in the mornings on December 24th and December 31st. Strategic plan areas: a community that is educated on responsibilities and limitations of council and administration. Summary: the year 2020 has brought unique circumstances to the workplace for all of our staff. Daily, they continue to take care of each other in our community during a time of constant change and uncertainty. Administration is recommending that council approve the closure of business operations on December 24th and December 31st from 8 a.m. to noon, in addition to the time that employees already are entitled, as stated in the employee handbook. This would be an opportunity to provide staff with a few more hours of time to focus on their health and well-being during the holiday season. Staff on call will respond to any emergencies that arise. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. So I'd be looking for a motion from council for the changed hours of operation.
Sure. Hi.
Councillor Pat had her hand up first.
Whoa.
Okay.
I move that Town Council directs administration to close the daily operation of business for all staff on December 24th, 2020 and December 31, 2020, with the exception of emergency response when if required.
Thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Councillor Wayne.
Just a comment. I'd like to see this because I've been asking for about 5 years now to have both those days off for staff. So thank you for doing that. And let's see if we can, if it works well, I think this is something we should move forward with going forward.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wayne. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Councillor Judy Chahanda?
I've been looking at other municipalities, and some of them are giving them the whole week off. Now, I don't know if they do that as that's part of their holiday that they're honestly taking, and then just have limited staff on call for emergencies. I know it's a crazy time, but really, unless you're not sure how much you're really getting done. I know when I was in business, we got lots done because it was quieter usually, right? And so I'd like to go in because I can get lots done. But if that's working, that might be something we might want to consider somewhere in the future too. That week in between is just a lull week. And I'm anticipating you have very little staff in there anyway, probably 2, eh, Patty?
Mr. Mayor, we only have 3 right now. So yes, probably
will during that holiday period.
Well, we only have 3 staff. So yeah, in the admin office right now, right? So yeah. Generally we have about 3. We allow 1 in the admin and maybe 1 in public works, or maybe 2 to be gone during that week. But it is actually a very productive week. I'm just recommending this year with the extra pressures of life.
Absolutely, yeah, sounds good.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion?
This is all, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor Wayne.
And this is for both administration and public works, is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, not for public works, no, shocking. Yes, for everybody. They don't work. Sorry,
Dennis,
enough.
I tried, Dennis, sorry.
Yes, this would be for all staff, including, anybody working remotely or administration and public works.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Just wanted to throw this out there. I agree that our staff definitely deserves that time off after such a tumultuous year. The week of the 21st, so you would have the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with the staff in, right?
The
so 24th,
grab a calendar.
24th and 31st are both Thursdays.
Right. Yes, because Christmas Day would be a stat holiday, and then the 26th would be a stat, so they would also get the 28th off because the 26th is a natural break.
Right, and then they would back into office the 29th and 30th?
That's correct. So they would have a 4-day weekend, essentially, Mr. Mayor, twice in a row. Okay,
yeah, I think it's great to review it year by year, depending on how it falls and how things are going, and with such a terrible year and so hard on our staff. And what's going on and the great job they've been pulling for the town. I certainly wholeheartedly support this. So thank you. Any other thoughts, questions, or concerns? Okay, all those that are not in favor of this motion, please say aye. And the motion's carried. So moving right along, bylaw 9.2, bylaw 15-2020.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to proceed with Council October 21st, 2020 Council Meeting Resolution 282-2020. The Town Council give first reading to bylaw 15-2020, a bylaw repeal 02-2018, a bylaw to establish, oops, Mr. Mayor. Oh,
The second reading, Patty.
Sherry, that should be the second reading, right?
The second.
Yeah.
My apologies, Mr. Mayor. The Town Council gives second reading to bylaw 15-2020, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 02-2018, a bylaw to establish a Bruderheim Recreation and Culture Board. The Town Council give third reading to bylaw 15-2020, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 02-2018, a bylaw to establish a Bruderheim and Recreation Culture Board. In 2012, Bruderheim Town Council approved bylaw 04-2012, a bylaw to establish the Bruderheim Recreation and Culture Board. On April 25th, 2018, Town Council passed a resolution to approve third reading of bylaw 02-2018, a bylaw that set out board composition and voting member criteria. This bylaw repealed bylaw 04-2012. At the October 21st, 2020 meeting of Bruderheim Town Council, Resolution 282-22 was passed by Council, in which there was a request to repeal bylaw 02-2018. The repeal of this bylaw is due to the impact of COVID on hosting events, fundraising, and other initiatives, and the retirement of the majority of the board members with the onset of COVID. On November 4th, 2020, Bruderheim Town Council gave first reading to bylaw 15-2020, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 02-2018, a bylaw to establish a Bruderheim Recreation and Culture Board. The repeal of this bylaw is related to the impact of COVID on hosting events, fundraising, and other initiatives, and the retirement of the majority of the board members. A community is educated on responsibilities, limitations of council, as well as the legal impacts, Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M26, Section 63. The Bruderheim Recreation and Culture Board was integral in providing recreation and cultural events in Bruderheim. In recent years, the number of volunteers has subsided, and with the onset of COVID, the needs of the community have changed, and communities are not able to host events as they have in the past. When COVID restrictions are lifted and events can resume, as they have in the past, Bruderheim Town Council administration will review the role that the Recreation and Culture Board provided and the options going forward. Communication plan, information will be shared with the Bruderheim Recreation and Culture Board remaining members.
Thank you for that. So we're looking for a motion for the second reading.
I could read that.
Thank you, Deputy Dan.
I move that Town Council give second reading to bylaw 15-2020, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 02-2018, a bylaw to establish a Bruderheim Recreation and Cultural Board.
Thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Okay.
Coming back, right? It's coming back.
Yeah, that's right. So if there's no more comments, questions, or concerns, call for a vote. Anyone opposed to this motion? And the motion's carried. So now we're moving on to the 15-2020 third reading.
I'll make that motion.
Do we need a preamble first, or we're just going to go?
No, we're good, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor George.
I make a motion that Town Council give third reading to bylaw 15-2020, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 02-2018, a bylaw to establish a Bruderheim Recreation and Cultural Board as presented.
Thank you, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? I think it's worthwhile repeating what Deputy Mayor Daniel said. It's coming back, right?
New and improved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So if there's no other comments, questions, or concerns, we'll move to a vote on this. Is anyone not in favor of this motion? Sad to see that we have to do this, but that's the way life goes, and like we have said, it'll come back. So that motion is carried, and we move on to 9.3 quarterly management report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to provide council with the management report, which includes a financial status report as of September 30th, 2020. The Town Council accept the management report and the third quarter financial update as information. On August 19th, Council accepted the second quarter report as information. Strategic plan areas, Council's key oversight responsibilities in the area of financial resource management, which includes a review of quarterly financial reports. Sustainable and safe infrastructure, Council ensures that we remain in favorable financial position while supporting the town's ability to meet current and future infrastructure requirements. A healthy, vibrant community, managing financial resources is a key contributor to financial sustainability and the achievement of Council's vision. Open and transparent governance administration. The financial policies provide direction and guidance to Council administration to enhance the town's financial strength, flexibility, cash flow management, and ability to achieve the Council vision and strategic plan areas. Other impacts, debt management policy, FIN 095, financial reserve policy, FIN 091, Legislative Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M26, Section 268.1B. The actual revenues and expenditures of the municipality compared with the estimates in the operating capital budget approved by Council are reported to Council as often as Council directs. Administration reviewed the financial results as of September 30th, 2020, is providing Council with the following status report. Operations are on track with revenue amounts of $2,532,883 to September 30th and expenses of $1,862,887. Approved capital projects totaling $524,000 and projects that have been paid to September 30th total $161,956. Budget amount remaining of $362,044. As of September 30th, the town bank account balance was $1,784,665. The town's total repayment on long-term debt is $102,870. This long-term debt was incurred to finance the purchase of a wheel loader in 2010, construction of a new fire hall in 2012, and the street improvements in West Woodlands in 2017. The total long-term debt is well within the internal policy requirements and provincial debt guidelines. The current balance of the reserves account is $887,158.01. These reserves are used to fund operating and capital expenditures approved by Council. COVID-19 related expenses have surpassed the allotted $20,000 by Council. We'll be using their funds recently received through the most funding to pay for all costs associated with providing municipal services during a pandemic. A detailed report will be coming to Council in the future on the expenditures related to COVID-19. That's it.
Thank you for that. So we're looking for a motion to receive the management report and the third quarter status report. Someone be willing to make that motion?
I can bring it forward.
Councillor Pat.
I move the Town Council accepts the management report and the third quarter status report as of September 30th, 2020.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Pat. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Is there anything that you would like to highlight in the figures under the revenue and expenses in that couple pages there, CAO Pat? And before you answer that, I just wanted to point out that back in August, we were extremely worried about what the town was doing. And I think through our administration and CAO's efforts, our town is making it through, and the residents of our community have come through. And I think that our community be stronger coming out of 2020. So thank you for all the hard work from our staff and our CAO. Much appreciated.
Mr. Mayor, some of the larger variances I will be bringing to Council in detail in December that will explain, again, sometimes the auditors explain to and educate us that the final number is what the most important thing in each section. So because of the pandemic, some of our revenues have been down, some of our expenses have been up. We had no way of guessing that when we did the budget in the spring. So we'll be bringing a detailed budget variance to Council in December that clearly outlines why certain line items are either below or above budgeted.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from Council with the motion? Okay, not hearing anything from Council, so we'll take it to a vote. Anyone opposed to the motion for the quarterly management report? And the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to 9.4 2021 interim budget, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did we need a comfort break before we go into this, or are we good?
What are we at? 8:27. Does someone want to make that motion, or should we proceed?
I think we should continue because we had a long session earlier.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I was just checking.
Okay, we'll continue.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm going to everybody has their budget presentations. I'm just going to try sharing my screen so that our viewing audience can also follow. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would like to present the recommended draft interim budget for 2021. We would like to remind Council that this is for information only this evening. This is not for approval. This is for discussion basis, and that's why it's recommended draft interim. In December, we will be bringing the interim budget for approval. And again, that's the interim budget. And like no other year, I'm sure we will make final draft or final budget decisions in the spring once our assessments are in and once we have a clear understanding of the funding that's going to be available to us. I thought this was a really good quote. A budget is more than a series of numbers on a page. It is an embodiment of our values. Barack Obama. I think that's a really good quote for 2021. Just a reminder that Bruderheim is secure and a vibrant place to start and raise an active, healthy family. Small town values, community spirit, recreation, social amenities make Bruderheim the location of choice for families seeking the very best quality of life. My message this year, the year 2020 has presented unprecedented challenges to our community, Alberta, Canada, and the world. Navigating the impacts of COVID-19 along with other economic challenges already faced by Albertans has been complex and difficult. We've been very successful in supporting the safety of our residents and our staff. We have balanced maintaining established service levels to our residents and businesses while learning new ways to work safely, effectively, and efficiently. We have built stronger and more collaborative relationships with neighboring communities and all levels of government and have worked closely with public health leaders to ensure our practices are evidence-based and current. As CAO, I'm very proud of our staff that they've worked in this environment and none of them could have predicted. And as a resolve and leadership, they demonstrate every day. The events of 2020 reminded us that resources and capacity have limits. The 2021 draft interim budget is a representation of that reality. New initiatives were weighed heavily against the availability of grant dollars, legislative requirements, and the growth of this region. Town Council and administration are aligned in our commitment to maintain service levels, deliver these services in a manner that is efficient, sustainable, and fiscally informed. During this time of unprecedented change, we continue to use our resources to deploy, plan, and deliver sustainable programs and services. We make mistakes and face obstacles along the way, but we learn, evolve, and adapt. And in this evolution that helped us develop creative solutions to both regional and global emerging issues. We are engaged in a difficult journey surrounded by change and uncertainty, but we are ready for the challenges we face. So this year, this whole year, I've been working on looking at how we provide services and starting to divide us into different divisions. And so the senior administration will be identified as mayor and council, policy development and implementation, promotion and publicity, communication, intergovernmental affairs, public engagement, and legislative services. This division is headed by myself. We have infrastructure services who deliver urban and rural infrastructure, winter and summer maintenance, agriculture services, capital construction, transportation planning, traffic safety, parks maintenance, fleet and building maintenance, occupational health and safety. Our corporate services, headed up by Sharon Sinclair, compensation and benefits, technology planning and strategy, assessment and tax, financial reporting. Community planning and development services, headed up by Sherry Cote, RCMP and enforcement services, business and development attraction and retention, family and individual support services, land development planning, and trade agreement compliance. And sorry, Mr. Mayor, infrastructure services is headed up by Dennis Tomashat. Council can interrupt anytime if you have questions.
Yeah, I was just going to ask trade agreement compliance. I'm not really 100% sure what you mean by that terminology.
So, Mr. Mayor, that's procurement. So making sure that we follow all the rules municipal governments have to follow when procuring services, contract services.
Yes, so it's procurement.
Northwest Trade Agreement, those sorts of things.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the highlights of the budget this year, we are recommending a operating budget of $3,668,367. The recommended 2021 interim budget calls for a 1.54% municipal tax dollar increase of $43.50 per year, or $3.63 a month for the average homeowner in Bruderheim. And we base this on the municipal price index, which reflects the price of goods and services provided by the municipality. We have included this year a 1.5% increase in the cost to deliver services. Utility rates this year, we have redone the fees and charges, which will be coming to council in the next meeting. So utility rates have been recalculated in the fees and charges. Residents will now be charged for uses as opposed to a flat rate. This change causes significant variances in utility revenue and expenses, which Mr. Tomashat will address in his presentation. The COVID-19 global pandemic health crisis is reflected in our recommended budget. To ensure the health and safety of our community remains our #1 priority during these unprecedented times. Cost inflation, economic conditions, availability of grant funding continue to impact the town budget.
Patty, if I may.
Yes.
If you go back to screen one, sorry.
One more?
So no, that's good there.
Okay.
Just for clarification, utility rates have been recalculated in the fees and charges. So what utilities is that affecting? Just so everybody understands.
So that would be water, sewer, actually water, wastewater, and our refuse. So refuse and recycling. So
charge on a usage. So if we don't get it dumped one, like for refuse, if we don't get it dumped 1 week, we don't pay for it. Is that correct?
Oh, you asked what utilities are, but that's what's included in utilities. So only water and sewer and wastewater will be affected.
Okay, no, perfect. Thank you.
So the sewer and wastewater will be based on the water consumption now. So the less water that you use, the lower that your sewer and wastewater charges will be.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I ask a question here on that?
Go ahead, Councilor.
Did you do a study how much it will affect the seniors who do get the reduced rate of $10 or so? How much will this affect? Has anybody put with the computer and crunched the numbers to see how much will it affect the seniors within the community?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Filato, that's a great question. The water and sewer rates didn't have a reduction for seniors. The recycling and refuse have the reduced rates for seniors. Which were not touched at all. We didn't touch those. Those are cost recovery because we contract that out.
So, but is there a possibility that the seniors' rates would go up because of the flat rate change?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Filato, I would hazard a guess that will go down. The average, so right now it's a 14 cube flat rate, and the average resident in Bruderheim uses 10, just crunching the numbers. So I would guess that if it's a single person, they might only use 6. And again, the encouragement will be to use less water, be environmentally more friendly. And it's up to the homeowner depending on how much they want to use. So if you want to use less water, your bill will be lower. If you want to use more, it will be more.
I'm still quite concerned about this because seniors do water the grass more and do other things more, and it might affect them even more than you think.
Mr. Mayor, we will, through Councillor Filato, we will be bringing the fees and charges for discussion at the next council meeting. But I can assure you that I crunched and grabbed a whole bunch of people's water bills and shouldn't say water bills, my apologies, utility bills. And generally, residents, if they're using 10 cubes, will see a reduction in their bill. Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor Campbell has a question.
Okay, Councillor, go ahead. With your presentation on the screen, I can't see the gallery view, so go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway, with going to the usage, how does that affect our our income rate as per cost for to maintain our water sewer systems, which is we seem to always be having a problem with enough dollars to maintain the status quo. A decrease in income could have a detrimental effect on how we maintain our systems.
So Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, that's a great question. We do have a basic rate, operation and maintenance rate for depending on the size of your water meter, that rate will go up or down. So a larger commercial, for example, would have a larger size water meter than the normal 5/8 for a residence. So they would see a higher flat rate than a residential unit. And that would cover off our, that will cover off our operation and maintenance costs.
But with a flat rate to it, or a set rate, that gives us a more of a guaranteed income.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I wouldn't say it's guaranteed because before we had a 14 cube flat rate that also incorporated operation and maintenance rate within that flat rate. So this is just a little bit more transparent. It actually will say exactly, here's your water usage, here's your, it will actually have line by line what you're paying for utilities, which is very similar to municipalities up and down the highway here that are also on the John Patouk.
And how much of an extra cost is it going to be for administration and data gathering?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, the software, we can set the software up to calculate that. So once we introduce readings into the system, which we already have, then it will just take that number and calculate the rest. So there's no more, of course, when we switch over, there'll be a tremendous amount of work as there is changing any software program or the way we do business. But then once we're up and rolling, it will be no extra work for administration.
So you're saying there is a cost saving towards the people and a loss to us?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, utilities are on a cost recovery. So the municipality doesn't use tax dollars to subsidize utilities.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Any other questions right now from council? I do have a question. Is our refuse contract up next year?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Because that could potentially have an impact on next year's budget, right?
We've got 2 more years in it.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions, or can we move the presentation along now? I think we can keep going. CAO Pat.
Okay, I just wanted to do a quick overview of COVID-19 and how it affects our corporation. The impacts of the global COVID-19 health pandemic continue to create challenges for Alberta, the region, and the town. The health and safety of our community remains the #1 priority and provides additional guidance for the measures the town will be implemented through 2020 into 2021. The town of Bruderheim continues to follow Alberta Health Services recommendations by implementing aggressive, proactive protocols to limit the spread of COVID-19 and protect our community's health and safety. The town continues to provide guidance for local organizations to support safe community programming. Customer service areas were retrofitted so staff can safely provide services to the public, and enhanced sanitation practices continue in all town facilities. Property tax and utility bill deferrals provided some relief for taxpayers. Communication with the community about COVID-19 health and safety measures and the best practice is ongoing, and the town will continue to adapt and support municipal business and community programming and services to leverage a strong, resilient, innovative community. The following budget captures the adjustments that the town of Bruderheim has made and reflects anticipated needs while protecting the health and safety of our community during COVID-19. Property tax rates are not set at this time. As a reminder, the property tax rates for 2021 will be see first reading May 5th, 2021, when council has all the necessary information they require in order to set the tax rates. Any questions about this? Everybody's clear? Okay. Just a quick outline. So council understands the budget outline this year. The 2020 operating interim budget will be passed on December 16, 2020. The 2021 capital final budget will be passed on December 16, 2020. The 2021 operating final budget passed on May 19th, 2021, and the 2024 projected operating budget will pass on May 19, 2021, and the 2022-27 projected capital budget will pass on May 19th, 2021. This budget maintains as best we can the services the community expects, plus resource goals and initiatives focused on priorities. We support the MDP, the IDP, the ICFs, the MGA, strategic plan, and master services plan, recommending that we only use reserve and grant funding to support capital projects in 2021. Just a quick overview for people that are dialed in. We take our community needs, we establish our strategic plan through council, council directs priorities, we get our long-term infrastructure plans, we develop a budget, and once the budget's approved, the administration develops our work plans, and that's how we get our action items. So now we'll just take a quick look at the operating budget, two-year operating budget variance. As you notice, we have a 1.5% recommended increase. I'm just gonna go ahead and go to the next slides. I will let, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Just back up
Councillor.
one page.
Yeah.
It says 1.5% increase, correct?
Yes.
So, but when you look at the taxes, both 2020 and 2021 are the same. Is that supposed to be?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's a great question, Councillor Lecko. I asked that when I came to the world of finance, and it's because the budget has to balance. And so if you look on the bottom, it's probably a little bit clear. The difference between expenditures and revenues is $15,159. So that's where we get the 1.5% increase to balance the budget to zero.
So 1.4 or 1.47 plus the 15 is the increase. The 15,000 is the increase. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, which equates to about 1.5 because every 10,000 is about 1%. So the budget has to be balanced so that we have enough revenue to cover all of our expenses. So that's why that's a great question. I asked the same thing too years ago.
Okay. No worries. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt really quick. Because we're on this page, are we able to, I know we're not going to go through every single one of these, but there's a couple that I kind of had questions about.
If I can just stop for a second, we're going to go through all of these by department, if that helps. Or if you want to talk about them right now, that's okay. But I've got the directors going through their specific where there's variances if you have questions, or if you want to talk about something, it's up to you.
Okay, it was actually something that we had passed recently, was the franchise fees. I thought that the increase was going to be higher than $2,400. Thought it was in the tune of 14,000. Am I completely out to lunch on that one?
So, Mr. Mayor, for the budget, we just added 5% until we received notification from our service providers on the actual numbers.
Okay.
But great point. Yes.
When does that come back then?
We usually, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecko, we usually hear by the year end. So hopefully by December, we should hear about that increase.
So thank you. That could effectively cut the increase down a bit?
No, Mr. Mayor, what that will do is effectively, through Deputy Mayor Scoosball, that will lower the amount of reserves that we have to use to balance our budget.
Gotcha.
If you see on the revenue, it says transfer from reserves.
Yeah, it's very high, and I realize that as well.
Yeah, so we would strive to lower that. It's always my goal that today's residents pay for today's expenses, right? So,
if I may, I have one question.
Go ahead, Councillor George.
Yeah, and on the line where it says supplies and materials, there's quite an increase. Can you explain what that is? Increase it curtails? It's $66,000.
So, Mr. Mayor, this takes, through Councillor Campbell, this takes all the supplies and materials from every ledger. So every department, so if you would allow me to go through department by department, it might become clear. I can't tell you right from this sheet what specifics they are, but if you allow the directors to go, you'll see which department has the largest increase and ask that question. And if it doesn't get answered, Councillor Campbell, I will definitely get back to you with a breakdown.
That seems to be quite an increase. It's almost a 20% increase.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I think it has something to do with utilities, the way we change things around, but we'll wait till we get there. And if not, I will send a breakdown to all of council why that increase is.
Thank you.
CAO Pat, just one question, if I may. On salary and wages, looks like it's almost the same number. So are we looking at a zero increase on that for next year?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I forgot to mention that the COLA is 0% this year, which is the cost of living increase. We're suggesting no increase for council or staff for wages.
Thank you.
I have a question in regards to that. Did our staff get a wage increase last year, Patty?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schuler, 0.5%.
And the COLA is 0 this year?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the first page from council? Then I guess
talking about wages and salaries. Is this going to set us back as far as keeping in line with other municipalities as far as staff? We are currently looking at restaffing some of our positions. And how is that going to affect us?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, thank you for that concern because it is very important to stay regionally competitive. I would say to council that this is our draft interim budget. And I think once we hit spring next year, we'll have a clearer picture of our environment and our funding, and there might be an opportunity to revisit this one. But right now, the budget's pretty tight. As you can see, our reserves transfers are pretty high. So I thought it was prudent just to keep it at 0 for now.
So we will revisit this in the spring then.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I revisit all the line items once we get the assessment and confirmation of grant funding.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council on the first page? Okay, please proceed, CAO Pat.
So, Mr. Mayor, this is broke down by department. So you can see the significant changes in each group. And again, I would say to council, if you could give us the ability to go by department, I think some of these variances can be explained. A lot of times we're getting better at tracking, and we make sure we're charging things to the right departments and the right staffing. And a lot of also, if you remember our audits, a lot of the stuff that we used to put in capital budgets is now in our operating budgets. If it's replacing something, it goes into operating as opposed to capital. So when you actually look at our budgets year to year, it's sometimes not always clear when we're putting things that used to be classified as capital into operating. Any other questions before we go on?
Always more questions, but we've got the final budget too.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Tomashat, are you on?
Yeah, you bet, I'm here.
Okay, I don't know if you just put up your hand or something and I'll flip the slides for you.
Okay, go ahead and flip, thank you. So this is to do with the infrastructure services, which encompasses all of public works, roads, water, sewer, parks, arena, all the recreation. So we'll go through it. Infrastructure services touches the lives of every citizen every day. The department is responsible for managing the town of Bruderheim's infrastructure above and below ground. Above ground, it's easy to see the impact as the division plans, constructs and maintains streets, sidewalks and highways, designs and maintains facilities and parks, and coordinates plans and permits. Below ground, the work is more hidden, but just as critical to everyday life. The department provides treated water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure that promotes public health and safety. Quality infrastructure services to keep citizens safe in all seasons, facilitate excuse me, facilitate logical and balanced development, and keep the community economically resilient with an expanded level of services. Challenges. Implementing new offsite levy processes and assessing their impacts on new infrastructure construction, increasing costs from regional supplies and their pressure on water and wastewater user rates, maintaining and replacing aging infrastructure while minimizing impacts on residents, increasing service requirements for provincial and federal governments along with unpredictable funding sustainability, forecasting weather patterns and their impacts on operational and infrastructure planning. So the focus for 2021 will be maintaining core services, improving safety, and delivering on strategic plan objectives, continuing to review the 5-year capital plan, water reservoir upgrade funding opportunities, which we will be talking about, and succession planning. Opportunities. The opportunities are to provide key infrastructure for new growth by utilizing new government grant programs, engaging with stakeholders while promoting cost-effective methods for service deliveries, and working toward the culture of continuous improvement. Efficiencies and changes to business. Increasing collaboration among regional neighbors for service delivery and providing infrastructure solutions. Developing and promoting cross-training opportunities, prioritizing and sharing resources. Continuing the review of service levels and new requirements. Continually finding new types of equipment or shifting strategies to create cost savings and operational efficiencies, such as the completion of the replacement of the outdated water meters to wireless transmissions. So Patty, prior to this, was talking about some of the increases and how we could break some of this down. So you're going to see some of the breakdowns in this under common services. So I am not going to go into detail on the salaries and wages. That's something Patty can discuss later. You will see some increases in the employees and benefits because that follows suit with the salaries and wages. Under the office expense, with some of the control measures that we were put into place in terms of communication, that being IT services, some static IPs, which are communication lines to our our satellite locations, those costs have increased. What are the other increases? Our building maintenance, you'll see, has actually gone down because we were able to achieve some of those goals in 2019 and some in 2020. That was it. We can move on to the next one. There's not much of an increase there. Roads. Again, I'm going to skip the first 2 lines. Equipment maintenance. That is something that I've struggled with to try to put a number on. This year, in 2020, as everything else in 2020, we've seen some difficult challenges with some of the older equipment that we still own. Specifically, our 2 big trucks, our single axle and our tandem axle. We saw some significant costs to maintain those this year. As such, I see that forecasted as being some increases in the coming years. So I want to just be prepared. Certainly, if we don't use that, it's obviously an overage that we can put into surplus at the end of the year. However, to be prudent, I want to make sure we don't go over that number. So I think it's a conservative number for the amount of equipment and some of the aged equipment that we have. Supplies and materials, again, that incorporates gravel. The gravel costs, if you can actually believe it, they've gone up. Chip costs, emulsion costs for some of the road repairs that we do. That encompasses all those under that supplies and materials. So again, just $1,000 increase to stay in line and in check with some of the other suppliers increases. Contracted services, that one there, you'll see an $8,000 increase. It's a number I want to put in there, and that is for contracted services for a street sweeper. We all talked about it. I know since I've been here for the last 3 years, this has always come up as a discussion. You know, we've managed to mitigate those costs over the last 3 years by using some of our own equipment. However, there's a cost to that. And I'm on the fence if we're getting good bang for the buck for what we have for current equipment for sweeping. Certainly, if we don't use that number, you know, again, it'll be a number that'll be surplused out, but I felt it prudent to put that number in there in the event that we need to go to contracted services, contracted equipment out for street sweeping.
Sorry, Dennis, that includes any snow clearing if required, is that correct? If you were to hire, sorry, some feedback there.
Well, no. So that contracted service doesn't include just that. We have a separate line item for that. If you can bear with me, Councillor Letko. Let me double check that too, please. My apologies. Yes, that does include snow removal.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, that's a budget for 3 contracted snow residential clearings, priority 4.
3 full clearings of town, is it then that, right?
That's just for the priority 4 residential streets where we have to hire trucks to haul the snow away.
Yeah, no, perfect, thank you.
And so far this year, we've had 2.
We've hired out for that?
Yeah, twice in the spring. Yeah, like in the first, yeah, gotcha, in the first quarter. Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Thank you for that question, Councillor George.
Yes, your budget, does it show any dollars for replacement equipment? Say you have to buy new equipment, or?
Mr. Mayor, through the Councillor Campbell, you'll see that in our capital budget when it comes out for some equipment costs, but certainly you won't see it in this. This is operating.
This is strictly operations.
That's correct. And you'll see that, Councillor Campbell, in the capital budget. There is we'll be reviewing that. There's a place that we'll be looking at some, a piece of equipment.
Yeah, I see it right now.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on the roads?
Yes, I have a question on snow removal. So would it be prudent for wording review on the snow removal policy, accumulation versus packed on first snowfall of the year versus priority routes and non-priority routes? I feel that there's a bit of a disconnect between admin, public works, and council in understanding what exactly that policy is telling us, and that it may be best served if we could have some clear input to address that. And then I believe that we could save the town some money.
Mr. Mayor, I think, yeah, I mean, there's always opportunities to save dollars, and certainly I think I may turn that one over to our CAO to answer that question.
Mr. Mayor, as you know, we did bring the winter policy back for review this fall after Councillor Schuler asked us to do that. And council reviewed, and I think you're talking about accumulation and compacted.
Yes, because I think that there's some misunderstandings on exactly how that's worded and how that's implemented. And I really think that we're tying Public Works' hands in regards to the policy, the way it's worded. And I think that we could, going forwards for next budget, not this year, look at rewording that possibly and making it clearer and have a clear understanding for everybody on how it's worded and how it's implemented. And that way, then I believe we could save potentially $10,000 a year.
Mr. Mayor, the only way to save $10,000 a year would be to drop service levels.
I'm not saying drop service levels. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but the idea of having a snowpack on the road is something that is of value. With the wording of total accumulation, that doesn't happen efficiently, in my understanding. Am I right?
So very quickly, P1 through P5. So the P1s, the way it's worded right now, is 10 centimeter accumulation. And P1s are obviously our thorough through and Queen Street, just to make it very simple. Our P2s are our arterial routes, and that is 51st, 48th, Brookside, Outer Ring, and West Woodlands, and the Sunset main drags. I think we're all very familiar with what P2s are. The P2s are the ones that I believe, Carl, that you're questioning in our discussions about that. And that the way that's worded is 10 centimeters, 10 to 15 centimeters accumulation, where perhaps that should be a 10 to 15 centimeter pack to avoid those extra costs. And so it's something that I think needs to be addressed, certainly from the concerns that you've brought forward. I think that's what you're after. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And I'm not saying that we're dropping service levels. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just think that we'd be served better and be able to be tight with our money and still provide what our residents need for snow removal. And it would be clear for everybody so that we're not tying Public Works' hands and costing the town needless dollars.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just be clear on the winter maintenance policy, there's a reason there's a policy, and that's to make sure that we keep standards. And that's what triggers. We do measures and we make sure that we follow those guidelines. So absolutely, I can bring the policy back if it needs further discussion. But going from accumulation to compacted definitely drops service levels.
For a P2 only is what we're referring to. And I would argue that the service level would not be impacted greatly, but that's something that we can debate with our council. I'm just saying that in a time when we're counting every dollar and we have an opportunity to save the town some money, it might be something that's worth revisiting.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. We can bring that back for discussion to council.
Yeah, and then maybe have Dennis there to answer any questions so that we're clear on understanding for everybody.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We have 2 dump trucks. We bought a Bobcat last year and a few other pieces of equipment there. I truly believe we could do most of the service ourselves. We don't need a contract. If it takes an extra half day, a day to do it, I don't believe the citizens would mind that at all if it keeps their taxes down. I honestly believe we can make better use of our own equipment and our own employees to do the snow removal than contract it out. Because one day ain't going to make any difference to any citizen.
Thank you for that, Councillor Len. Administration, any response?
Go ahead, Dennis.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Len, I appreciate your concerns and I understand your intentions. However, I got to make it very, I have to make it clear that we can't do the town with our own trucks. And I think I explained it earlier about our aging equipment. Those 2 trucks are aging equipment. They cost us a lot of money. I'll tell you what happens when you start using, and these are smaller trucks that we have too. I want you to keep that in mind. So let's say I just want to throw an example out there. If we start on P4 residential, and Mayor Hawk and I had a really good discussion about that a while ago. So if we start up on our P4s, and all of a sudden we get hit with another snowstorm, those P4s go into hold mode, we go back to P1s and P2s, and then we come back to P4s, and we struggle to catch up and start all over again. The idea and the intent is to get that snow removed as soon as possible, as efficiently as possible, and as cost reductive as possible. The trucks that we use get the snow removed in a timely fashion. I believe that the residents having the snow removed in the time that we do remove it are very appreciative of it. It would take us currently to do with our 2 trucks approximately 3 solid weeks. That's 3 solid weeks to remove that snow without having any interruption of any other snowfall. With that would be the cost of fuel, the cost of maintenance of that equipment. It goes on and on and on. There's a reason that municipalities are using some of these contracted services, and that is obviously to get that snow removed in a timely and an efficient manner. I do believe, and from the comments I've heard from residents, they aren't willing to wait that long to have their snow removed. They want it graded, out, and gone. And I've heard a lot of positive comments about it. And of course, there are a few that will have negativity toward it. But again, I want to go back to your original statement, Councillor Flardo. I do appreciate and understand your intentions, but it's my job to make sure that you understand what we're trying to do out there and trying to get it done because Public Works has more to do than snow removal in the winter. We just can't stop all our operations for snow removal. And it does take almost all of us to get that done. So I hope that I've been clear on that, and also I'm trying to be as respectful as I can to all of council to understand what we as Public Works are up against to get that snow removed. Thank you.
I have a comment to make, if it's all possible.
Go ahead, Councillor George.
Yeah, compacted snow has a good point and a bad point. Good point is its insulation over your sewer lines. Bad point is once you get a thaw, you start rutting, and then you have a real mess. And it's 10 times harder to clean that mess up in the future than it is to do it when it's fresh snow. And it's more costly and harder on equipment. I have to agree with Dennis in his answers to our questions in regards to clearing. It may seem like an expense now, but it's not a great expense when you look at the big picture. Big picture being, if you wait and pack the snow down and you have to move it, it's going to take more time to break it up off the road, and it's going to be a lot harder on your equipment.
Thank you, Councillor George. Councillor George and Councillor Lynn, are your questions answered sufficiently from administration?
Yes, it is.
Any other questions from council on the roads segment of the budget? Looks like we can move on to the next segment then.
Okay, we will move on to parks. Excuse me. So, sorry, did somebody say something? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to parks. So you'll see that we've dropped our travel and substance for obvious reasons. We're going to be doing more online training in regards to some of the arena maintenance and park maintenance. There's always new programs coming out for learning activities. Our communities in bloom have gone up $1,000 up. I don't see that there. Budget increase. And everything else has pretty much stayed the same. So for the parks, move on.
Yeah, I see 5 work for his room.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, Councillor Lynn.
I see the campground revenues at 40,000, and I don't believe we're not even going to make near that. So why is that not being adjusted to show the true number?
CAO Pat, do you have documentation from this year on campground revenue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Falardo. I don't have it right in front of me, but I know that we are very close to 40,000 for this year.
I'm totally amazed. Good job then. Thank you.
Yep, that's excellent.
So I do have the number. We are, and Patty is actually correct. We're at $1,500 short of 40,000 revenue this year.
Good job.
Yeah, large turnarounds in the future for next year again. So potential to hit it again, hopefully.
Thank you.
Any questions for parks from council?
What is our utilities costs to run the campground?
$6,000 is what we put in the budget for electricity. Water is it's almost impossible to measure. We don't have a meter on the campground, but we've seen no significant loss, and I call a loss based on what's going to the town and what's going to the campground. So, you know, Councillor Campbell, I would say it's a very insignificant amount of money.
But we should have a meter on that line to tell us so we could be do a half decent audit.
And we are working towards doing that. Hopefully with these new meter purchases, that's one of the items that have been flagged as to have a meter on. As you all of council knows, I'm very anal about having accurate amounts of water. So we are working towards that, Councilor Campbell.
Thank you for that.
No, I'm not finished yet. So we have a gross income of $38,500, but we do not have a net income for the campground. I'm talking about maintenance, and not only for grass cutting, gravel, all that good stuff.
So we have a revenue of 45,000 coming in, and we have an expenditure of 45,000 going out. So it's almost a complete wash.
So it's not a profit then? It's
not a profit. We are washing that
one almost straight through. It's more or less of a service then.
That's correct.
Answered. Question answered.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor George. Any other questions from council for the parks? I guess we can move on to the next section.
Okay, so this is the water, excuse me, the water budget. So we'll go through it. On the penalties, you can see not much has changed from 2020 to 2021. The sales of goods and services, which is the total volume of water along with min fees, has gone down. You'll see a $28,000 decrease. And the revenue side has actually gone up. And that's because of a transfer of reserve. And that is due, and I will let Patty explain that one, and I will jump in on that one, on the reserve, but we'll come back to that. On the salaries and wages, again, we're past those two. Travel, substance, maintenance, membership. Of course, with water and wastewater, it's regulatory, so that number will not change. Year to year, it'll stay pretty much solid. Myself and two other operators have to maintain our accreditation. The equipment maintenance, excuse me, the equipment maintenance is up by $5,000, and that is due to our some of the new software. So there's licensing that is involved there with our Neptune for that first year. So we have to address that. That number will change next year. It'll drop because of the servicing licensing. And our insurance, Sharon and I, we always are conservative about insurance. We always put a little blop in there because we just don't know where the numbers are going to go. Supplies and materials, there is a $60,000 increase in that. And that will be due in part to our meters, which we will talk about, Patty, later on.
I think right now is a good time, Dennis.
Okay, so let's talk about the transfer from reserve. So historically, council has, and again, I'm going to rely on Patty to help walk me through that because I wasn't here then. But council had committed to putting so much money away each year for hydrant enhancement. I have reviewed the hydrant mapping in town. In a perfect world, it's a grand deluxe hydrant coverage in town. Currently, what we have does suffice on the most part. However, it's been a while since we replaced hydrants due to the fact that the current hydrants that we have are in excellent maintenance form. We do have a couple of hydrants that will be added into our system. However, we will be taking that out of grant funding that we have available to us for 2020, 2021. So our thought was, and I would ask council's indulgence for a few minutes on this. Probably one of the most significant things that a municipality can do is be able to have the ability to meter read each and every resident that are on the water system. We do have that ability by having to currently walk out to 161 homes and grab that meter reading. I'm going to give everybody a little example of a few residents that were hit with a very substantial water bill in the last 2 months. And that was due to toilets leaking. Right now, we currently read 1 month, then we estimate the next month, then we read the next month, and so forth and so forth. Due to that, these 2 toilets ran for basically almost a month and a half before it was caught with our pocket readers, which we go out, physically have to go to the house, touch the house, and get that reading. By the new software that we've purchased, and kudos to Andrew and Sharon for helping implement that. They've been extremely reasonable teaching me that as well. It's great software. We haven't utilized it yet due to the fact that we do not have all the meters changed over to the radio frequency. We still have 161 that we have to go up and physically touch. Moving forward, this would help us account for any water losses much quicker. And I know that Councillor Letko has talked to me on a few occasions about how we find these water leaks in the distribution system. It's on a much grander scale. We look at the total water going out to town, and we, at times, and I believe it was last year, twice we had to send our staff out and walk the entire town to do an actual read to see where this water was lost. Having the ability to have these all on RF, we can actually call that system up and actually look at each and every resident's water meter on a radio and see where that was. The system's designed to flag it. So we'll use Councillor Flardo. If your toilet was running, we would get a flag. It would indicate that it was out of the norm flow. And we would call you and say, Councillor Flardo, you have a high water usage over the last 24 hours. Please check your appliances. We need to get to that stage. And we've been working at it very slowly and way too slow. 25 meters a year doesn't get us to where we want to be. We need to get there and be efficient and not have these water losses. That is a very big cost to a municipality if we can't recover those costs. So our plan was hold off on this transfer of reserves to hydrants and move those transfers over to capital for the purchase of the rest of these meters. Let's get them done, get them in, move on. This will do everything I just said, plus reduce the amount of staff having to go out. There's a huge safety factor involved here with my staff. They are challenged by dogs, fences, other impediments that would factor into their safety to have to walk. Once we go all RF, it would take us approximately 15 minutes to drive to town, and we've captured all the water meter reads, done. And it gives administration a little more time to get those bills out instead of being rushed one day to get those readings, get the meter billing ran, start folding, and get them out. So it has a tremendous amount of advantages, not only for operational and efficiency, but from an administration point. So this is our plan going forward, and we would like to make that happen for 2021.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add something. So the intent on the reserve transfer would be to take from the fire hydrant reserve that's been sitting dormant for a few years and we figure that the water meter upgrade is a higher priority than enhancing our current fire hydrant capacity in the community, because our current fire hydrant capacity is fine. We can always add more, we can always make it, but we figure that this is a better use of the funds that we have in reserves right now.
So we will be putting in no fire hydrants next year, only water meters.
Mr. Mayor, we'd be putting in 2 fire hydrants next year that'll be funded through grant funding.
Okay, and so am I correct in hearing then to be able to catch these water running issues, we would be doing a reading every month then? That's
right, Mr. Mayor, and it would be a lot quicker. Everything is done in the cloud, and for some reason, if there was a reason mid-month that we wanted to download, like Dennis said, if there was a significant water loss, we can manage that from inside the administration office to say download the water meters. It sends a message to all the water meters. It goes up into the cloud and back down into the office in a very effective and efficient manner.
And when would we be starting to not estimating anymore?
So Mr. Mayor, I would presume that next summer that our staff would start the water meter upgrades. And so we'd be online, depending on how fast they could get those done, by fall for sure, I would think. Is that right, Mr. Tomasha?
Well, and thank you, Patty. Mayor Carl, we have to understand we're going through COVID right now. So I'm not comfortable sending my staff into homes at this present time to change out meters. I'm hoping that January, February, something comes along and we can start doing some of these meter switches. But, you know, once that happens, the safety of my staff comes first and foremost. But if opportunities arise prior, we'll work as fast as we can to get this done.
So if nothing changes with COVID, then we probably wouldn't be changing any meters next year.
Well, I've talked to Mr. Mayor, I've talked to other municipalities. They are going into homes and they are doing some meter changes. Obviously with the proper safety PPE and what have you. So nothing says that we can't do it. There's nothing legislative that says that we can't do it. Again, I just have to ensure those safeties are put into place for my staff and a very good, clear understanding of what the challenges are going in. So no, we wouldn't be prohibited because of it, but something that we'd have to sit down and discuss.
So in essence, we're juggling some money around to get the meters hopefully done next year and 2 fire hydrants. And where would the 2 fire hydrants be?
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One would be at the Studio 6 Queen's Park corner. And that's because of the increased residents in Studio 6. And the other one would be over by the lift station.
Okay. No, go ahead, Councillor.
I was just going to say the water meters has been a long, slow process, and it'd be nice to just finish and have it done. And I realize the concern about employees going into homes to do any servicing. However, plumbers and electricians are going in and doing stuff in people's homes with the PPE that's required. And so it is a doable, and it would be nice to have it done.
And Mr. Mayor, our software provider said we're one of 2 municipalities left that they service that still has the older meters. Mm-hmm. And they have quite a large reach.
Yeah, so we're special. Any other questions from council on the water portion of the budget?
I have a question.
George?
So this transfer of funds explains the almost $66,000 increase in material and
supplies. Yeah.
And supplies.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, that's correct.
Okay,
and it's being funded through the fire hydrant reserve, so not any impact to tax dollars.
Could we have a breakdown on cost savings on wages now that when we put this new system in? Dennis made a comment about time saved.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, we can put some cost savings together for the next presentation on transferring to a cloud system.
I think that it's very detrimental and for information for the council because every time you implement something new, it's got to have some kind of impact, negative or positive.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lecco has his hand up. I don't know if you can see.
No, all I can see is your presentation. So if someone's got a question, please speak up. Go ahead, Councillor Wayne.
This is a question maybe for Patty. When will the per use charges take effect for water?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, if council approves the fees and charges, they would be effective January 1st. Okay.
Now, in the past, when we did a reading and then it was what do you want to call it? A guesstimate or whatever. An estimate. that estimate was always for the flat rate, for the rate that we charge, but how's that going to work going forward when it's a per use? Is it going to be household individual for
Mr. Mayor,
a guesstimate?
Mr. Mayor, through Council Echo, that's right. We'll be going to monthly readings, which will be an
Yeah.
increased cost. Yeah. So that's why we really want to get to these wireless readings.
Yeah, but the house-to-house readings won't take an effect until everything's in place, right?
Mr. Mayor, through Council Echo, starting in the new year, we would do monthly reads with the new fees and charges rates.
So there'll be no more estimates as of January.
That's right, Mr. Mayor, through Council Echo.
Thank you.
Except the meters that wouldn't have been changed out yet.
Mr. Mayor, through Council Echo, will be for all houses. We'll do a monthly read.
Oh, so even for the ones that haven't been changed out yet?
That's right, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, because they have to go into the yard and do that, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
So this 60,000, Dennis, that'll cover all the meters for this, like that, then we're done?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schuler, we currently have 161 meters left in town to do, and that would cover off on the rest of the meters.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council for the water budget? Looks like we're safe to move on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we'll move on to the sewer budget. So we will go right into the, we'll go with the revenue right now. So you'll see an increase in revenue of $36,000, and that's to now work in conjunction with the water consumption that we're using. So there's a percentage that we factor into that. And so again, it's like everything else. The less water you use, the less cost of sanitary sewer service. The more water you use, the more it will go up. On our salaries and wages, they haven't much changed. I just want to see if there's any increase. They're transferred to reserve.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just comment on that one. If you'll notice in the water, if I go back, you'll see a reduction transfer from reserves. And that was moved, just the way the calculations worked, was added into the sewer.
Okay.
It's just the way that the new fees and charges are suggested.
Okay. Thank you,
Patty.
Patty.
And again, we don't have a clear view. This first year will be a difficult one to guess if people will, because some people might believe if they're paying for 14 cubes, they're going to use 14 cubes. Some people might reduce water usage, some might increase. So the first year of transition is always difficult.
For sure. Can help me to understand, to make sure that we're all on the same page. When you're saying the budget is going to be 36,000 more, is that because you're going to be having a better idea of exactly how much water is going through the system? Is that why the increase, or struggling to make sure I understand that fully?
So Mr. Mayor, previously there was a flat rate for sewer.
Yeah.
It wasn't based on consumption. So now it's 100% of consumption.
Right. And so what we're really saying is that the estimate was low and we're thinking it's going to be higher than that now?
So again, Mr. Mayor, it's just a difference. Before we had that 14 cube flat rate. And so there was a lot of costs included in that. And now we're actually separating them out and identifying them. That's why you're seeing these drastic changes in line items.
Yeah, so I thought if we're going to see maybe potentially less water numbers because we're eliminating the 14, that this number might actually go down instead of going up. That's why I'm just a little bit questioning that.
So Mr. Mayor, if fees and charges will maybe be a little bit better to explain how that might look.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, it's the reassignment and the clarity and the transparency of telling residents. So you'll see now, instead of 2 or 3 items on your bill, you'll see probably 6 or 7.
Okay.
It's kind of when we moved salaries and wages around when Dennis came, we worked really hard at assigning parks, roads, common services. For the first few years, you saw some huge shifts in the wages, and it was just really from Paul and Peter, right? So we'll try to make it a little clearer in our next presentation on the differences and how they were established.
Yeah, because it's sale of goods and services. But is there any other questions from council for that portion of the budget? If not, then we can move on to the next portion.
So I think I've explained to all of council year after year, refuge, it's a complete flow through. It's in and it's out. So we don't make, it's not a money maker. What our contractor charges us, we put back to the homeowner. So it's a straight flow through. So a wash, if you will. Any questions?
That's pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Karina, love this one. So you'll see that total revenue hasn't changed. We're very optimistic about the remaining year. Again, keep in mind, we have 2021, January, February, March, and also our September, October, November, December. You know, I'm very optimistic things will improve. In our costs, just going down, office expense, we've now put in internet in there so that we have some Wi-Fi ability for our staff. I know Councillor Letko would love to see us go Wi-Fi throughout the whole building, and we're working towards that. So we haven't forgot about it, Councillor Letko. Other increases, supplies and materials. Again, we're being hit with some higher costs with our white ice from our supplier. Again, we've made improvements to the system, and so with that, there's a slight $2,700 increase, a very conservative number to deal with. Other than that, you'll see that our power bill's gone down. I think all of council would like to know that our numbers have dropped since 2017 with the new plant. And just to add, this is the first year since I've taken over this, well, actually I commissioned the plant. This is our first year that we've gone almost 2.5 months with not one alarm to our plant, not one alarm. So this is Yahoo, touch wood, we haven't had any issues. So staff have done an amazing job at maintaining, and so we're looking good. No significant costs and expenditures for Arena.
Good piece of equipment.
Any questions? So the Business Infinity Center. So we did see some costs this last year, and that was in due part to the roof. The membrane, it's a 2-part membrane roof system on there, and Councillor Schuler will know exactly what I'm talking about. Again, I don't have enough background, but my understanding is the roof was replaced several years ago, but that a portion of that roof failed, so our costs actually went up for maintenance, for building maintenance. But we do predict lower maintenance this year. I think we've addressed everything that could possibly fail. It's the unknowns. We just can't predict that. So again, we actually have a decrease in the budget for expenditures. So
sorry.
That's right.
Why doesn't it show a decrease for building maintenance?
It does.
It does there, 3,000, 6,000, but the extension doesn't show it in the total.
Oh, I see. It's not showing up in the column.
Yeah, so it's not a true number at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's a good catch, Councillor Letko. Thank you. We will make that change.
If you play with the math, it does actually show the true number at the end, just because the 1,500 plus the 500 plus the 100. And then you're still negative 850. So yeah, the 3,000 is in there.
So it's just missing on print.
Okay.
Councillor Pat?
No, all good.
Looks like we're clear to go to the next section there, Dennis.
Hey, sorry, I'm just, I'm watching everybody. I've only got a few people here. So community hall. Well, I think we've seen some significant challenges with the community hall this year. Revenue wasn't where we thought and hoped it to be for obvious reasons. So, however, our expenditures have not been out of line. We do have some plans for in terms of building maintenance. You'll see that number hasn't changed. We want to look at improving the efficiency of the windows in front, which we are losing a significant amount of heat through. So we're conservatively going to start replacing a few windows each year. Obviously, $7,500 isn't going to replace all the windows, but we'll conservatively replace a few each year moving forward. And you will see a little bit of an increase due to the electricity in the building. We did take a little bit of a hit, I think more so because of the cold temperatures last year. And we were in the midst of doing some modifications and improvements to that building. So hopefully this year we don't see too much of an increase in electricity, but we thought we'd put it in there just to be safe. Any questions?
That's fair to go to the next section there, Dennis.
Hey, I think that pretty much does me.
Any other questions for Dennis before we let him go?
When are you going to start falling snow?
Tomorrow morning.
We were actually out twice today already on some of the P1. So,
if I may say, good job. If I may say, Dennis, please commend the people that work at the arena. They're doing a great job there. They're on top of things. Everything's getting cleaned. They're doing a heck of a job. So please extend the thank yous and the great work.
I will do so. Thank you, Councillor Lecco.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Thank you for your time, Dennis. If there's no other questions for Dennis, and we can move on to the next portion.
Sherry, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Do you want to turn your, are you on? I don't know.
I am on.
Okay, there you are.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about community planning and development services. As a department with numerous public-facing services, COVID-19 has impacted the work of community planning and development services significantly. From keeping staff and patrons safe in town, recreation and culture facilities, to providing enforcement support and education, to taking on response and recovery leadership roles. Community planning and development services will continue to adjust to meet community needs in these uncertain times. Community planning and development services focuses on creating a safe, supported, and connected community that celebrates our diverse demographics. These priorities are strongly reflected across the department's work. Social supports provided by contract of Lamont County Family and Community Services, as well as town initiatives. Public safety education and response services delivered by contract through the RCMP and Strathcona County Enforcement Services and in-house emergency management team. Through the delivery of emergency services by contract through Lamont County to ensure effective and efficient fire and emergency medical service response. The delivery of medical services through the Bruderheim Community Clinic. Quality recreation and culture programming that supports tourism through our recreation programming. Compliance with land use and development plans provided by contract of municipal planning services and MPE, and document and contract management, as well as procurement services. Our focus for 2021 will be connecting with community partners and town nonprofit agencies to increase awareness, understanding, and action towards common goals. Ensuring the provision of community mental health and wellness towards reducing risk, vulnerability, and harm that includes a renewed approach to violence and trauma intervention. Conducting an accessible and well-run municipal election in times of COVID-19, which could be challenging. Working with stakeholders to ensure that we continue to attract and retain development opportunities. Our challenges: balancing the ongoing council priorities along with the corporate leadership responsibility for COVID-19 response and recovery. Continuing to be agile and responsive to emergent and changing community needs while continuing to provide recreation and culture needs in a safe manner. Recognizing limited in-person networking requires new approaches to business and investment attraction. Changing current bylaws and policies to adapt to working in a very virtual world. We have some opportunities. Optimizing use of grant funding from various sources by collaborating with community partners to support residents on specific issues. Heightening proactive patrols and traffic safety enforcement in areas of public concern, focusing on education and enforcement related to commercial vehicles, speeding, and vehicle noise, imagining and creating new outdoor opportunities and ways to deliver events in the community, exploring and promoting economic diversification opportunities in the agriculture sector. Efficiencies or changes to how we do business, continually finding new types of equipment or shifting strategies to create cost saving and operational efficiencies, such as online bookings for our Starlight Campground, transitioning to storing documents in the cloud, allowing secure access to documents, service delivery opportunities, partnering with neighboring communities to reduce operational costs. So I'd like to talk about planning and development budget. As you'll see, there's not a lot of change in this budget, except for contracted services. And we have decreased that just because of the economic times and what we predict will be happening in terms of planning and development. A lot of things that we thought we would be working on this year are kind of not happening due to COVID. And so we've decreased that budget down from 45,000 down to 30,000, but the rest of the budget remains pretty constant. Any questions?
The contracted services, Sherry, that would be IT services?
The contracted services would be that of planning and development and MPE engineering for things like when we're looking at the subdivision, for example, in West Woodland, when we're working with the developer over there, or we are requiring development permits for things like Canadian Rockies or other big developers. That's what that's for. So we're saying we won't be doing as much of that this year, just because of the type of COVID environment we have.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you. Any other questions for Sherry on planning and development?
The FCSS community programming, we did not change this budget at all. We figured that we'll be pretty constant with what we were in 2020. Any questions? Recreation programs, the 2021 budget. There is a bit of a change in the salary and wages because we don't have a recreation director, but we did put some money in contract management because there may be a point in time where things get a little bit better in our environment and we can actually start looking at what that might look like in the future. So we did put some money into there, so it kind of offsets one another. Employee benefits is down because when you have contracted contracts that you're paying, you don't have to pay the employee benefits. The balance of the costs have remained basically the same. Are there any questions?
If we go back to the FCSS for a second.
Yep.
So are these based on the actuals that we spent this year on next year's budget?
Yes, those are kind of in-out expenses.
Right, yeah. I was just wondering if it was based on actuals or it was the same as what it was forecast for.
Yes, because we actually have a contract for that amount of money for expenditures with Lamont County.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm trying to find. Sorry.
Councillor Wayne.
I'm just trying to find the recreation program on here. Give me a second.
I don't think it's in this one.
No, it's not in here, so it's hard to see.
It's on the emailed one and on the screen there right now.
Yeah, the emailed one is we're told to not to worry about, so that's why I was looking at the printed copy.
Yeah, he's got it on a screen there if that helps.
Did you have a particular question, Councillor Lecco, I could help you with if you can't read it?
No, I just wanted to look at it, but I just want to see if I had a paper copy. Just give me.
So basically the only change here is that we've taken away the permanent position of rec director and we've transferred that funds to contract management. So if we have an event like Canada Day and we're able to go ahead, or we can do some summer activities, we can hire somebody temporarily for 2021 to help us with those events.
Okay. So I have a question. So you foresee that we're going to be doing as many, like we're going to be doing as many events as we did in 2020 in 2021, even with COVID happening?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schurler, we didn't do any events in 2020, so I'm hoping we're doing a few more in 2021. I'm going to keep the faith.
Yeah, the line item is 19.6, right? For 2020 budget, and then 2021 is 19.5 special events.
So, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schurler, you'll see a surplus when we come to year end with the 2020 budget, because of course we didn't know when we set the budget that we wouldn't be having events this summer.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah.
So that surplus, then we could apply that to the tax increase if we wanted to.
Actually, you can't, Mr. Mayor. You passed a reserve policy that and a surplus allocation policy, but you could make a council motion to transfer from reserve something, yes, but not directly move the surplus there.
But that's what I was saying. Thank you.
I know. I was just reminding you, you do have a surplus allocation policy.
Sure. Yep. No problem. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification and the question, Councillor Judy. Any other questions on the recreation programs?
So virtually no change there, Councillor Lecco.
Okay, thank you.
The library budget is pretty consistent. There's no changes.
Yeah, because there was no increase from the Northern Lights, right?
No, that's right. Economic development and tourism. In this budget, there wasn't a lot of change either. There will be some money left over in this budget in the 2020 year as well.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question on that last one?
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Len.
I look at that and I have a lot of queries to it. We paid 70, we're looking at 70,000, we spent 57,000. And I support economic development, but I don't support the way we're spending the money in it. Personally, I think we have a better direction to spend it without paying wages. I look at those numbers and economic development, how much tax dollars in the last 3 years economic development has achieved for the town of Bruderheim? I'd say very, very little. We're looking at $150,000, $200,000 expenditure, which to me is just kind of a waste of money. We should sit down and, as a whole council, reorganize this and look at a way we can put that money better used in our community with the businesses now who are suffering immensely. And because we don't generate all this expenditures, I know for the last 3 years, I've been watching it, we haven't accumulated probably a nickel back in taxes. So it's not paying us. We're not going forward with this one bit.
Well, thank you for that opinion, Councillor Len. As we get to the final budget, it's definitely right. The conversations about every piece of the budget in depth will happen. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add to this point, salary and wages is a percentage of one of our existing staff members. So we've determined how much percentage of their time is spent on economic development and tourism.
The one question that I have, it would be nice to know a breakdown from each portion of the budget where the overages are coming and where they fit into the projected surplus. Do we know that?
Mr. Mayor, we don't project a surplus, we balance, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I just heard the word surplus a couple of times as we've been
in 2020, Mr. Mayor.
Right, yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, we're talking about the 2021 budget. So yeah, again, we won't have those numbers from our auditor till the final budget presentation in spring.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Looks like we're safe to go to the next section.
Disaster services. This budget has remained the same.
Is this where it ties into the work in the fire hall? Yeah. Or is it under capital?
Mr. Mayor, the work in the fire hall will be on capital because it's new construction.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And this slide too is part of the COVID money. So where it says transferred from reserves in 2020, that was the money that council placed into a budget to cover the COVID costs for this year. Right. And I notice under office expense, there should be some more money in there. There's an error there. There should be a $25,000 cost.
And we don't see the money coming in from the most to cover that 20,000 here. That comes in a different portion of the budget.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Bylaw. This budget covers that's new this year is the requisition for the RCMP. We had a $27,000 cost last year. This year, the predicted cost is $39,193. So that's an increase.
Mr. Mayor, I thought we talked about this at great length last year, that we would not include the RCMP costs into direct taxpayers. We'd have a separate entity. We'd send a bill out to every citizen in the town to know them, show them that this province is downloading on us. We can't afford this policing for policing we don't get. And it's just ridiculous. And I think we should not pay that bill, send them a letter and saying, at this time, due to COVID, we don't have the money to pay you. You'll have to wait, because that is a waste of money. We get no service for it. And that's strictly a download for the rural people. It's not assisting us one bit. And we talked about not putting that in our taxpayers. We wanted to make sure that the people of this community are well aware that the province downloaded that on us and with no benefit. And we should not pay it, or if we do pay it, it should be paid as a separate entity, just like a water bill, so the people of this town know that we have to pay additional costs for policing all of a sudden.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Filardo, in the spring, we talked about different ways to, when we did the budget for 2020, about different ways to capture these costs. And if you remember, I can send that back out to council, that legislatively, we're only allowed to collect funds in a certain manner, and that's through taxes. So I could resend that, Mr. Mayor, if that would help with clarity.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. But I think that it's good that we're showing it very clearly here where that increase is coming from. And I'm just wondering if the province moves ahead with their plans to provincial the police force, I wonder if that cost would change. But I guess that's something that we have to wait and see in the future.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. And I'm sure that we can have further debates on once we get that information back to you at the next council meeting. Is there any other thoughts or questions on bylaw from our council? It looks like we can proceed to the next section.
Firefighting and protective services. Just building maintenance on this one is a change. And electricity.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could just remind council that as part of our emergency services contract with Lamont County, we're responsible for all the building maintenance of the entire fire hall.
Right. On the electrical, we just saw a couple slides back that the electrical was going down, but on this one, we see it's going up. Is that based on actuals or what's driving that one?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, so we were low before.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. And we have seen an increased use of the fire hall for sure.
Okay.
And with lights on being there so often, especially in the bays, is there a way to change light bulbs to more efficient bulbs, or has that been done already?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, yeah, that's before, if you remember when we did that lighting upgrade in the arena, that's why you're seeing significant, starting to realize those investments. We didn't, the fire hall wasn't a huge cost, but definitely keeping my eyes open for another one of those grants, so that fire hall seems to be our next building that we use the most. So yeah, great point. I've been watching for grants for that again.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions under firefighting and protective services? Looks like we're clear to go to the next section. Questions? Any further questions from council? Not hearing anything. Is moving on to corporate services now.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. I'll just give Sharon a chance to get on here. Oh, you have to tip it more.
Oh, I can't see myself. How's that? Can you see me now?
You can.
Okay. Corporate Services provides guidance and internal services to all departments to maximize the organization's effectiveness and potential. The division works behind the scenes to support frontline departments, recruit and train staff, optimize technology, obtain legal advice and support for activities of town council. The department is critical to achieving success for the organization, putting resources into place to respond to the needs of our residents. This fundamental internal structure allows the operational departments to concentrate on delivering services to citizens effectively and efficiently. The COVID pandemic has placed tremendous demands on corporate services, staff, and operations. These pressures are anticipated to continue given the potential for COVID-19 to remain well into next year. The focus for 2021 continuing with the conversation of more services to online, including payroll and utility billing, reducing accounts receivable, and the challenges are changing skill requirements related to advancing technologies, meeting capacity challenges as teams continue COVID-19 response, managing the high demand for service with critical extra attention required in coordinating projects to ensure success. Our opportunities implementing new and upgrading technology changes to improve the way we do business, streamlining contract administration and procurement of services, finding new and innovative ways to work and engage staff in a pandemic environment, efficiencies and changes to business, user fees and charges, change management strategies with a considerable rewrite in 2020, Neptune software upgrades, integrating with Muniware.
Any questions for Sharon on the general administration interim budget?
So, Mr. Mayor, I could...
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could point out the $75,000 in grant revenue, that would be the COVID funding from the government. That's where that's being put into offset costs within the operating budget. And interest revenue is down, of course. Significant other ones, I think pretty much the same, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions?
And we have a few more people coming off the tax-free free expense, which is $8,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty much all for admin. Any questions, Mr. Mayor?
Anybody from council with some questions for administration? There's a slight bump in the salary and wages. $12,000.
Contract management, Mr. Mayor.
Oh,
that
okay.
would be our contract management services with Strathcona County.
Okay. That's
me.
Some estimate, or?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there any other questions from council? I'm not hearing any more questions, so I guess we are at the end of the presentation, or is there some more yet?
Just a few more slides, Mr. Mayor, if you want to be patient.
Sure. Yeah.
Senior administration, that's the group that I oversee. That's myself, communications, legislative services. We develop, implement, and administer policies and programs established and approved by the council, support and assist and advise town of Bruderheim on legislation and municipal operations. We oversee the delivery of council's strategic plan, build a clear understanding of priorities, improving communication, and engaging the public, advocating initiatives to regional partners and other orders of government. Senior administration develops, implements, and administers policies and programs established and approved by Bruderheim Town Council. They also support, assist, and advise council on legislation and municipal operations, the information necessary to support informed decision-making. The CAO clarifies operations to achieve council's strategic vision. The CAO is responsible for delivering the tactical plan that aligns with council's strategic plan and oversees the communications and legislative services. Senior administration serves to strengthen the programs and services offered by all other town departments by building a clear understanding of priorities, improving on communication, engaging the public, advocating initiatives to regional partners and other orders of government, and monitoring success through a framework of performing measures. Through sound advice and identifying strategic issues and opportunities, senior administration aims to bring out collaborative success to increase efficiency and effectiveness. Our focus for 2021 is conducting a corporate communications review to identify gaps as well as opportunities for efficiencies, continue advocating for positive rural and urban growth and commercial industrial development through our membership in the Alberta Industrial Heartland, Greater Edmonton Economic Development and Tourism, and the Alberta Hub. Focusing on accomplishments, public engagement through multimedia and formats in order to achieve feedback from the community on a range of issues. Updating current policies and bylaws to allow for increased online service delivery. Some of our challenges, altering the ways in which we deliver our internal services as resources are reallocated to emerging priorities due to fluid circumstances. Anticipating future provincial decisions that will affect our current operating status. Adapting internal and external communication strategies based on changing information given the daily unknowns. Opportunities, creating new opportunities for engagement and priority setting through the 2021 municipal election. Continuing to create opportunities to reduce red tape through regional collaboration, creating new opportunities to strengthen the town's communications both internally and externally. Efficiencies are changes to business, building an intergovernment relationship both internally and externally in order to continue to provide timely and strategic advice to council, transitioning council to electronic communications and sharing documents electronically to reduce administrative costs. Enhance current elected official training to include specifics to the town of Bruderheim governance so newly elected officials are better prepared for their roles in the community. The elected officials, the town of Bruderheim's elected officials are stewards of the town's strategic plan. It is council's responsibility to guide the community in realizing a shared vision, with the voices of citizens setting direction for the programs and services that meet the needs of the community. Elected officials establish priorities to execute the critical functions of the town governance. Roles and obligations are set out in the Municipal Government Act and other legislation. It is council's job to govern and to plan for success. Elected officials provide leadership and direction to administration and review and approval of policies and programs that benefit residents, businesses, and industry. To facilitate the decision-making process and to inform the organization on regional issues, concerns, and trends. Councillors are members on a number of external committees, boards, and commissions. External representation ensures that the well-being and interests of the municipality as a whole are considered, represented, and promoted now and into the future.
What's that scratchy noise over there? What's that scratchy noise I hear?
Okay.
Thank you for that.
That's my dog was scratching the rug. It's like, what?
So the final budget for legislative services remains unchanged.
Except for that scratchy noise.
Yeah,
scratchy noise over there.
Scratchy noise. Yeah. That would be the $500, Deputy Mayor. So we left remuneration and expenses the same, anticipating that hopefully we'll get back to business in 2021. Any questions for legislative services?
I have one, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple. First is the travel distance. Due to the hard times right now, and we're doing a lot of the computer stuff, I think we can look at a way of reducing that somewhat. And the mayor's supper, there's no chance that's going to happen with the thing. So we can reduce that by $3,500. And so we can save a few dollars there for the taxpayers.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just qualify that, $1,800 sales of goods and services is for the mayor's supper tickets. So that would come off the $3,500. And once again, it's very hard to put things back into a budget once you take them out. So if you take it out this year for 2021, that would be, like say you completely remove the travel subsistence, that would be $15,000. That would be a 1.5% tax increase next year to get it back in, just as a caution to council.
Yeah, so I think it's a fair question about the travel and subsistence and membership training. Is that based on actuals from 2020?
2019, Mr. Mayor. 2019,
okay. And so that 15.5 is from 2019, and we don't really know what it was costing us this year then.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it wouldn't have been that much, right? We would have definitely have for surplus there.
Right, and we don't have a feel for what we could reduce that number to for going forward for next year, because chances are for next year, or does council want to keep it the same? I guess that's that question. And then the other question is, if we're selling tickets, then the true figure should be on here for the mayor's supper, not the 30 or 3,000 or whatever, right?
So, Mr. Mayor, the revenue is sale of goods and services is 1,800. We can't.
Oh, I see. It's up there. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
That's why I was just qualifying that. Those are GLs, like general ledger titles. We can't make a whole bunch of general ledger titles.
Thank you for that.
So basically, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Basically, if you leave it in and somewhere along the line we decide that these are going to be too high, we can transfer reserves and put it back into the budget so that technically your taxes don't go up. Am I correct?
Sorry, so Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schiller, if we leave it in the budget and at the end of 2021 there was a surplus, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm thinking more for 2020. So it's there. We don't know what it's going to be in the end. But if for 2021 we decided that, you know what, we've got X amount of dollars that were not used this year because of COVID and everything else, technically they would go into reserves, right?
Absolutely,
Mr. Reserves and put against the tax increase for the final.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Schiller, I would caution council that we've also seen significant loss in revenue and as well an increase in costs for things like the arena, the extra staff for cleaning and all the extra costs that hopefully will be covered by the grant. Yeah. But I'll have a better feel for that. That's why it's really great that it's in term budget, that we have an opportunity to really look at the whole picture in the spring.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yeah, and then I'll be able to share with council exactly what everything looks like. And right now, this is just, boy, this is a big crystal ball look. Eye level 30,000 foot look at budget.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions or concerns with the legislative services? So we're on to capital budget then?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So thank you very much. So the capital budget this year involves allocating resources to meet both today's needs and the requirements for long-term financial sustainability, balances the pressures of infrastructure maintenance, growth, and new capital projects, considers the impacts of future operating budgets, staff resources, and available funding. Annual rehabilitation and replacement programs are used to identify capital assets that require funding and attention. To ensure a sustainable future, the first capital consideration is the maintenance of existing assets. It is imperative to continue with the renewal cycles and annual maintenance based on periodic asset reviews to maintain service levels in the long term and protect the town's investments. What is capital? Capital projects transform and sustain the town of Bruderheim, bringing to life the vision council holds for our community. Investments in infrastructure such as facilities, parks, vehicles, roads, and water lines are the backbone of every community. It is critical to rethink, revitalize, and preserve our capital assets in order to meet community priorities, accommodate a vigorous and resilient economy, and continue to provide the essential services residents rely on each day for health, safety, and enjoyment. Capital is the means by which we provide services to the community. Focus for 2021, planned maintenance and life cycle repair, one-time and emergent maintenance and repairs, rehabilitation and revitalization, planning and design of future assets, the creation, purchase, and construction of new assets. Some of our challenges: maintaining current infrastructure, bridging the long-term funding gap, balancing capital needs for today and the future, accommodate for growth in core service infrastructure, investing in infrastructure for community growth. This year's proposed 2021 capital budget includes continuation of our GIS mapping asset management initiative, fire hydrant near Queen's Park addition, a fire hydrant at lift station addition, solar lighting at the crosswalk on 52nd and Queen Street, public works roof replacement, and a regional EOC construction, and the replacement of our lawn tractor with a mid-mount mower. Any questions, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, the one thought I had was, it was mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about water reservoir.
Mr. Mayor, if we get the funding for that from the federal level, we would come to council with a capital amendment. Okay, yeah, no, Dennis had made mention of it during his talk there, so I captured that one to ask a little bit later, so that might come as an amendment. Go ahead, Councillor Wayne.
Sorry, I have a question. So why is there such a significant price difference in the two fire hydrants? Is there no water at Queen's Park? Is that why?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, Dennis, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. So the difference is the reason there's a huge increase, excuse me, the one at Queen's Park is the one with the hotel. So that involves asphalt replacement. So that increase in the cost falls there. So we have to replace the asphalt because we have to cut into the street. The other hydrant is in a gravel road, and there is no top surface infrastructure to replace other than gravel. Hopefully that answers your question.
So there's no water on the other side of the road. Is that correct, on Queen's Park side?
The water, Mr. Mayor, through the Councillor Letko, the water line runs directly east and west in front of the hotel on the street.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's what I was asking, if there's any water on that other side of the road already. That's what I was wondering. It's so high. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question. Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Any other questions from Council for the capital budget?
This hydrant at Queen's Park, is it a necessity when there's already a hydrant at Shell?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could add, I had mentioned before, with the increased amount of residents, it could possibly be at the hotel at one time. We need the additional, you have to think that those are 66 more houses typically. So it's legislated that we need another fire hydrant there.
How far away is the other one on the other side of the street, the next block?
I would have to get back to you on that, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell.
If I'm not mistaken, this comes from an engineered study and it impacts insurance as well if we don't put that in, right?
Mr. Mayor, it's a condition of development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not something that we can get away from. No, Mr. Mayor, absolutely not.
It's a just asking.
No, it's a great question, Councillor Campbell.
Any other questions for the capital budget? Councillor George?
Yes, the fire hydrant at the lift station, is it a necessity or is it a want?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could just clarify through Councillor Campbell, these all came to council in this a couple months ago when we applied for the funding. Council made a motion to go ahead with these, but I'll let Dennis address that question.
Yeah, so this is grant dollars that we're spending here. It's not direct tax dollars from Bruderheim, right?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor, or from our reserves.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Campbell. So the hydrant at the lift station has to do with cutting back costs on what it costs us currently to clean that out. I think we've all heard the wipes. We had a lot of issues with those in the spring. That obviously was a concern of ours. Having a hydrant there will not really improve the ability to pump those wipes. Our biggest problem, and it has been since I've been here since 2017, has been grease. We, for whatever reason in the Brookside development, we have a tremendous amount of grease that shows up in the lift well. The grease throws a couple of variables in place for us. One, it affects our level transmitter. It throws false values to us because of the amount of grease. So it's an ultrasonic sensor that indicates a gap, if you will, right? So it sees, I'm trying to put it in layman's terms, it sees a level. The grease gets built up in there to a point that it throws a false level, and the pumps will actually start running more and more and more to a point that they're dry pumping. And then we get into airlock systems, and then it changes the game plan and how we pump that out. In order to get that grease, currently it costs us $1,500 to $2,000 each time I call a vacuum truck out to clean the lift well up. In my time here, I've had the lift truck here 5 times. So you can count on that as being $10,000 washed down the sewer, if you will. So by having the ability to have a hydrant there, we are able to do the job ourselves, not hire a contractor in. If it's an urgent issue, which that has happened on 2 occasions, I don't need to wait for another truck to get there. We have the ability to wash that down, break it up, and have the pumps discharge back into the force main and out to the lagoon. We are doing some preventive maintenance in terms of grease enhancements, grease breakdown enhancements. But by having the hydrant there, it definitely enables us more to have better control. And again, I want to just emphasize that these are grant dollars and not tax dollars being used to improve this service.
Just a question. Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other questions on the capital budget? Looks like we can move on. So do we have a motion already for the budget? I don't think so, right? To accept the budget presentation as information, we're looking for a motion.
I'll bring that forward.
Councillor Pat.
I move the town council accept the 2021 budget presentation as information.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Sounds like we've had a pretty good discussion. So anyone opposed to the motion? So the motion is carried. Now we move on to number 10, reports, council committee reports. Looking for a motion to receive the council committee reports as information.
I can make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Judy.
That council receive the council committee reports its information.
Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none. I'll call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to that motion? And the motion's carried. 10.2, mayor report. Would someone please make a motion to receive the mayor report as information?
I can bring forward that.
Thank you, Councillor Pat.
I move the town council receive the mayor report as information.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? The only thing I'd like to add is didn't make it onto the report because I made up the report last week. I had a half-hour sit down with Dennis at lunch on Monday. Just wanted to visit him at his new office and see what it looked like. So that's the only thing that's not on that report. So any other comments, questions, or concerns? Call for a vote. Anyone not in favor of this motion? And the motion's carried. So on to 10.3 CAO report. Would someone be willing to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor George.
I'll make a motion that the council receive the Chief Administrative Officer's report as information.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Anyone have any questions for CAO Pat on her report? Councillor George.
In light of the pump problems that we had at the reservoir, have we got a cost for the replacement of that pump or the repairs? And I was wondering if we have a procedure in place if a pump should go out we are relying on the fire pump and the one pump that we only one that we have. One of the problems there is what happens if one of those other pumps go out in the meantime while this one is out. What have we got, a standby plan or what?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I'll let Mr. Thomas address that.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Campbell. So there's an operating plan that we have. So basically when one pump fails, the other pump is left by itself. The fire pump itself can maintain enough flow for resident use, not fire water flow, but for resident use. So if we were to lose pump number 2, we would be relying on the fire pump. That would provide enough flow for the residents in town. However, again, it would impede the ability to fight a fire should a fire happen to occur. The first part of your question was preliminary costs. I do not have those preliminary costs. The age of this pump is a big impediment right now in trying to get costs. As of on Monday, they were still trying to split the bowls. The bowls are what encase the impellers.
Yeah.
So we are still waiting for some sort of an estimate, if you will. Some of the other challenges that we faced, and I apologize, I can't remember if I put that in my report or not. I think I did, was the fact that we don't have the ability to pull those pumps out with a crane. The roof was put on after the fact. Those pumps need to come out in one piece. That pump came out in 4 pieces. We had to cut the stems that drive the impellers all the way down. So in between this, I've now have somebody hopefully on Monday starting to put roof hatches in, so that we can bring a crane and lower the rebuilt pump back in as one piece. So a big challenge for us. It was a challenge getting it out of the lift well, but it needed to come out. It needs to be repaired. Staff are doing a great job at monitoring and making sure that we don't lose the other pump. Right now, it was hoped, we knew there was some concern with that pump last year when we did the motors. We were hoping that going forward with the reservoir reservoir upgrade, that we could incorporate those costs into that. However, it didn't last. So with that going forward, we're going to put once new pump's rebuilt, we will do some vibration analysis on number 2 again and see how we're looking in terms of longevity for that pump.
On the same topic, was there any research done on replacing the pump with a new pump versus repairing the old one? You're saying that we're having trouble getting parts, and now that these pumps go down again, we are back in the same problem. Should have we not looked at upgrading over repairing?
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Campbell, there's really no difference in a new pump versus an old pump. Basically, what's failed inside the pump has not been bearings; it's been bushings. They're typical bushings. They're something that can actually be machined. So if we can't find the parts, they'll just machine the parts. It's a simple bushing, not a bearing. The difficulty in splitting the bowls is basically rust and corrosion. They will get them split, there's no question. But going to a new pump, I believe that would be the wrong direction, and rebuild what we have. It would be significantly lower in cost and still get the same bang for the buck.
I hope the reason.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for the CAO report? I just have a couple of things I wanted to inquire about. I didn't see on the CAO report anything about the CAO survey. Is that coming back to council?
Mr. Mayor, that just got completed today, actually. Our communication person just sent that to me today, so we will fit it in somewhere in the council meetings. Sounds great. And there was some grants that you were going to research for towards the end of the year for community viability or feasibility. I can't remember the proper wording that we used at the time, and I don't see anything about grants in here, and I was just gently inquiring. I know you guys have been very busy. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to bring that to closed session to council as soon as we can fit it in.
Okay.
The schedule is pretty long this week.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions for CAO Pat on CAO report? Okay, haven't heard none. Call for a vote then. Anyone opposed to the motion? And the motion's carried. Great. 10.4 monthly fire district report.
Just for information, Mr. Mayor, our district fire chief's now providing a monthly report council received.
That's awesome.
Good.
Any questions from council on that monthly fire district report? We don't need the fire chief to present that, do we?
No, Mr. Mayor. That's for information. Yep.
We'll be looking for a motion to receive that report as information.
The council received the October 2020 fire district report from Lamont County Emergency Services as information.
Councillor Wayne, any comments, questions, or concerns, anything to highlight, council, on that report? I think it's just great that we're getting this report. I look forward to getting this. What, we're going to get it quarterly or monthly, or?
Mr. Mayor, the intent is monthly.
Oh, great. Thank you. Pass along thanks to Leslie for producing this. Much appreciated. If there's no further questions, then call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And it's carried. Did it backwards that time. Sorry about that. Correspondence and information items. I don't have any correspondence or any information. Was there anything in my mailbox from today? I don't
think so, Mr. Mayor. No.
Okay, so looking for Councillor Wayne to do the honors.
Make a motion to, well, this time almost go to bed or go home.
Or let the dog out.
That scratching noise.